Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the 111th session of Majlis Khonji via Zoom. Please allow me to introduce our guest for this session, Mr. Rahul Luther, co-founder and managing director of Hope Trust. He's a graduate of English literature, philosophy, and psychology, and he worked for about 25 years in the corporate sector before joining the social service sector. He has over 20 years of experience in addiction treatment, and he established the first care and support facility for people affected by HIV, the AIDS, in Andhra Pradesh, and the first rehabilitation center for addiction in the state. He has assisted several private and government agencies in setting up addiction-related policies and facilities in India and abroad, including Sultanate of Oman, United Kingdom, and Bangladesh. He published articles in leading national publications, writes blogs, speaking on national and international radio and TV, and lectures extensively on addiction worldwide. He's a former addict, and his personal experience add authenticity to his authority on the subject. He established Hope Trust in 2002, and the center has earned an international reputation for ethical and effective treatment for addictions and mental health issues. Hope Trust offers residential, outpatient, and online therapy options. Hope Trust has international affiliations with leading Canadian and UK-based treatment organizations. Mr. Rahul, welcome to Majlis Khonji, and over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have all of you from probably my most favorite country, Oman. I don't know why tourists don't go there as much. I've been there so many times, and Haji has been a very, very cordial and gracious host to me many times. Thank you all. I'll start it. We will do a presentation. And in between, if you have any questions, you can do, but mostly we will have the question and answers after the presentation. Haji is smiling because I think he has seen this so many times. Okay. Addiction is now recognized as a disease. We don't call addicts bad or mad anymore, though they may appear and do things which are viewed as bad, like cheating, lying, stealing, or they may appear mad because they continue to do something which is harmful to them and people around them. But addiction is now recognized and classified as a disease by leading medical authorities such as World Health Organization, British Medical Association, etc. The first time it was called a disease was in 1935 by the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill W. and Dr. Bob. Bill W. was a stockbroker and Dr. Bob was a physician. And they called it a twofold disease, a disease with two aspects, a physical aspect and a mental aspect, an allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. We call it allergy of the body because if a normal person, I will use the word alcohol here more. I am aware that in Oman it is more of drugs than alcohol, which is the problem. But alcohol is also a drug. Alcohol has a chemical formula CH2O4. And the impact is almost the same. So when I use the word alcohol, you can take it as heroin, cocaine, whatever you want. So allergy of the body means that some people are allergic to drugs or alcohol. That means uh, usually when we have an allergy, for example, if we are allergic to fish, then if we eat fish, then we will break out in rashes or have an adverse reaction. So that means it's an abnormal reaction. Therefore, some people who take alcohol or drugs have an abnormal reaction. They take it and then they like it so much that they want to have it again and again. A normal person has a drink, or maybe he has 2 drinks, and then he will have food, uh, watch TV with the family, and go to sleep normally. But if an alcoholic takes a drink, then an obsession is triggered and he wants to have more and more of that same substance till he falls down. So it is an abnormal reaction. That is why it is called an allergy. And an addict is obsessed with getting, hiding, seeking, and using the substance. In a more poetic way, they also called it a soul sickness. That means, it affects the entire personality, the mind, the body, everything of the person. It's a complete envelopment of the person in sickness. The American Medical Association also defines it as an illness. So they use the word disease, illness, and if you read the whole definition, they call it preoccupation, that means obsession. And then later in the PowerPoint, we will see how it is progressive. Loss of control means they may be able to control for a week or a day, but then they have to go back to it. And they have a tendency towards relapse. That means they keep, it's a relapse-prone disease. And it impacts all areas of their life. It impacts their emotional responses, whatever they are doing in their job, relationships. So they call it a drug dependence of pathological extent. So addiction is defined as a chronic. Chronic means incurable, like diabetes or heart disease. Relapsing disorder, which is characterized by compulsively, seeking or continuing the usage of the alcohol or drugs despite having adverse consequences, and it causes changes in the brain chemistry. This is, of course, the medical, they classify it as mild, moderate, or severe. We'll skip this because when a family is impacted by addiction, they're not bothered about. So some of the common drugs are alcohol, cannabis, that is weed, as it is normally called, or marijuana, nicotine, that is cigarettes or hookah. I know in Oman, hookah is quite common now. Tranquilizers, that is over-the-counter drugs, amphetamine or cocaine, or drugs which are related to amphetamine, like methamphetamine, they call it meth, or ecstasy, LSD, and cough syrups and painkillers. What are the drugs now common in Oman? Okay, most of you are on mute. Then there are other types of addictions called behavioral addictions. Eating disorder is a major behavioral addiction, gambling, gaming addiction, love, sex, exercising, going extensively to the gym, working, and shopping. Now, addiction is not something which is rare. It is World Health Organization estimates that 10% of the world population is addicted to some drug or alcohol. That means 10 out of every 100 people. And it's not that all drinkers are alcoholics. 2 out of 10 drinkers cross the line and get into a problem drinking. So if we are calling it a disease, then it will have some definite characteristics. So one by one, we will just explore the characteristics. Because, for example, if you get COVID, which is now the most fashionable disease, then you will have maybe fever, body ache, and it lasts for 15 days or whatever. So those are the characteristics of COVID. So similarly, what are the characteristics of addiction? Primary. Primary basically means that the problem is inside of the alcoholic and addict and not outside. Usually people think, this is a very, very common myth that the person is drinking or using drugs because of some moral shortcoming or because of some lack of upbringing. Many parents feel guilty that maybe when the kid was small, he asked to go to this particular school, but I sent him to that school, or I hit him once, or he was bullied in school, or he's got into the wrong company, as if the company is going around looking for boys to catch and force them to become drug addicts. So not so. Though environment does play a factor, but environment plays more of a factor in terms of choice of drug. For example, if you're in Dubai or Oman, most likely you will be addicted to a substance like heroin and not alcohol. But if you are in Europe or India, you're most likely going to get addicted to alcohol because of the accessibility and availability of the substance. Now, there is a genetic factor also in addiction. That means addiction runs in the family. Just as heart disease is genetic, diabetes is genetic, even mental health disorders are genetic. So, if it's not necessary that the first generation, that means the father or the mother, have a problem, but it could be the father's brother or the grandfather's brother or maternal uncle or somebody within the family who share the gene. There is also a biochemical factor. In our brain, we have chemicals such as dopamine, endorphin, which are responsible for our thinking and feeling. And alcoholics and addicts are born with either an insufficiency or imbalance of certain chemicals, and that makes them respond differently or less potently to situations. They are probably more sensitive people. They feel less confident in social situations. And alcohol and drugs simulate the action of, for example, dopamine, and they feel good. They feel more confident. They feel more happy, and they want to repeat that happiness. And then if you want to keep repeating it, the substance itself has a physical tendency for addiction. The body gets addicted and the mind gets addicted. So you have a psychological and a physical addiction progressing, and then it becomes a full-blown addiction. It is progressive. That means with time, the addiction keeps getting worse. The quantity and frequency of the intake of the substance will keep increasing over the time. And also the damages associated with the taking of the substance will also keep increasing over time. So initially, the family tries to, control, tries to advise or preach, but the addiction is so powerful that it doesn't work, and it keeps on progressing. Now, addiction is very difficult to treat. That means we are not able to help the addict so easily, because along with addiction comes denial. Denial is, Alcoholics Anonymous calls denial a very cunning, baffling, and powerful disease. Denial is like a self-defense mechanism. And the person who's having the addiction does not really believe that they have a problem. So when a person doesn't believe that they have a problem, why should they take the solution? And the denial also starts impacting the family. The family also starts believing, for example, the example I gave, that they are taking the drugs because of their bad company, or because of some childhood trauma, or because some other outside reason. So they are not recognizing the fact that the person is addicted because of internal factors. And he himself is choosing the company that he is in. It's not that the company is forcing him to choose them. So denial needs to be broken for the recovery to begin. Because unless the person recognizes, admits that they have a problem, they're not going to cooperate with any kind of treatment. So usually some crisis develops, either a health crisis or some legal crisis like an arrest, or the family gets very tough, which is usually doesn't happen in Eastern societies like India and Oman. You can't throw out your son outside. But in Western countries, they're more strict. They ask the son if the person is above 18 to leave the house, or the police is very, very strict, and employees are very strict. But here in our societies, we keep giving in, we keep giving chances, we keep getting soft. So it is more difficult in our social structure. Some of the common forms of denial are minimizing. That yes, I take drugs, but I don't take so much. I take only on weekends. I'm not as bad as Muhammad, who lives next door, you know. Then blaming or projecting. I'm taking drugs because my dad didn't give me the car, or he didn't send me to UK to study, so I'm frustrated. And then rationalizing, I work very hard, my job is full of stress, so therefore I'm using drugs. Then intellectualizing, weed is very good for creativity, it helps me work better, I can listen to music better, I can create music. Uh, I'm a medical person, I've studied, it's not harmful, I can leave whenever I want. Or when you talk to that person, they will change the topic. So when you say, lately you have been taking drugs too often, they'll immediately respond by the way, how's your job? I heard that you're now shifting to Salala for a transfer, or something, immediately they will change the topic. Or they will become hostile. They will get angry when you bring up the topic of their addiction. So you back out. Or silence. You keep on lecturing, scolding, whatever you do, they just stand there very respectfully, keeping quiet, and then go about doing what they want to do. So in short, the alcoholic uses excuses, they blame, they threaten, they charm you, they boast, and they avoid to silence the people who are trying to help them. Now, what the family does also is they reinforce this denial by continuing to protect, rescue, and tolerate the person's behavior. So every time he's having drugs and they come home, they allow him to come home, they give him food, the mothers will say, poor guy, you know. So the person doesn't face the consequences of his behavior. So if you don't face the consequences of your behavior, you don't realize you have such a big problem. So what you're doing is, the family is doing is they're enabling the addict to continue their addiction by providing free accommodation, food, jobs, tolerating their behavior, rescuing them whenever they are in a problem, whether it is a legal problem or a job problem, and protecting the person. You know, recently I got a call from Oman, and the wife was saying that I don't want, I said, first you admit him in a hospital to detox. They said, no, no, no. I don't want the legal, people to come to know that he's taking drugs. And he's working in a very sensitive organization, in the sense any accident can happen, anything can happen, and he can put other people at risk. So she then stopped talking to me because she doesn't want to tell anybody that her husband is taking, and he's taking huge amounts of heroin, and he's head of he's probably, there are 100 employees working under him. So it's very risky. So she's protecting him. By protecting him, he's continuing to, use the drugs. So it's not just the addict who gets affected by the drugs they are taking, it's the entire family who gets. We all know how the family undergoes a lot of stress, trauma, and negative feelings such as shame, guilt, anger. So entire family gets affected. That's why it's called a family disease. So this is just a chart to indicate how the addict's feelings and the family's feelings are more or less same. For example, last one, all addicts start developing a lot of low self-esteem because they lose a lot of things. They lose good friends, they lose time, they lose opportunity, they lose money, they lose health, they lose reputation. So when you lose so many things, you feel small. But how do you express being small or being worthless? You express it by showing off, by being grandiose, compensating it by grandiosity. Or you become very critical of people who you feel are better than you, including the family. So you keep criticizing the family, the government, your boss. When you criticize the family starts feeling that maybe he's right. So they start feeling low self-esteem. Then fear. Whenever we are scared, we don't. How do we show fear? We get angry, we get aggressive. And when because they are very scared, an addict goes through a lot of fear, small fears like, will my drug be available today? Or will I be caught by the police? Or will I be caught by the family? Will I lose my job? So many fears are there. And when they experience fear and they are confronted by any situation, their first reaction is to get angry. So when they keep getting angry with the family starts getting scared that when is he going to get angry next time with us? And it's an incurable, that means it's a chronic disease. Just like diabetes is incurable, just like heart disease is incurable, but there it is treatable. So when you are under treatment for diabetes, you have to maybe change your lifestyle, maybe take medicine, and you have to do it for your life. So similarly, in addiction also, you have to do the same. And because it is incurable, it has a very strong tendency for relapse. You can go back to using. So that's why in Oman also now you have 12-step meetings, Narcotics Anonymous. So you have to keep in touch with your recovery program. You have to keep in touch with your therapist. You have to keep reminding yourself that you are an addict. And once you realize, why do we educate them about that this being a disease? Because once a person recognizes that it's a disease, understands that it is a disease, the shame associated, the stigma associated with it goes away. So like if you get cancer or you get any other COVID, so you don't have to feel ashamed about it. It's a disease. Similarly, if you have addiction and if you are not ashamed about it, you can reach out for help. Not only reach out for help, you can help others also. Because once you open up, then other people, other families around you will also approach you that, my son, my brother also has a problem. So the recovery spreads in the community. And it is fatal. If not treated, ultimately you can die because of so many reasons. You can have a heart attack, you can have an overdose, road accident, you can slip in the bathroom, so many things can happen. So basically addiction affects all areas of the person's life. Physical, of course, since you're taking a chemical and putting it into your body, either through the veins or through the lungs or through the stomach. So if you continue, and once the substance goes into your body, it travels to your brain, and there it creates either a short circuit or expands your brain cells, and you feel good. That's the buzz you want. So by continual beating of the body and the brain with a chemical is going to have some physical consequence, some damage will be there. Then psychological, because again, continuous playing around with the brain, your attitudes, your thinking, concentration, focus, all mental faculties get impacted. Then emotional. The emotional response of an addict is not proportional to the situation. If there is a small situation, his reaction may be very big. If there is a big situation like somebody dying in the family, they may have or not have any feelings at all. Then the spiritual, spiritual means good qualities. I don't mean religious, but love, care, compassion, feelings for others, humility. So these aspects also get affected. Then relationships with family, with colleagues, with God, relationships with organizations like your company or your government also get affected. So, and that is why it's called a bio-psycho-socio-spiritual disease. Body, mind, relationships, spiritual disease. And therefore, the treatment has to be holistic. If you just go to a doctor, he can only treat the physical aspect. If you go to a psychiatrist, actually, psychiatrists may not be needed in addiction treatment, because though we may think that psychiatrists are, that it is a mental disease, but no. Sometimes, of course, there may be a dual diagnosis. That means there may be a psychiatric issue, which is along with a addiction problem. That is called a dual diagnosis. But then both have to be treated simultaneously. We cannot just treat the psychiatric problem. And most of the psychiatric diseases are addictive also. And the behavior of an addict looks like a psychiatric problem. So once you withdraw the drugs, once you take away the drugs, his behavior may then become normal, and it may not appear psychiatric at all. So the psychiatric evaluation is good to do only after the drugs are stopped, 2 or 3 weeks after the drugs are stopped. So then rebuilding of the relationships and rebuilding of the capacity of the person to have meaningful relationships with others, and bring about some humility in the person, some compassion for others, a capacity to love, a capacity to give, to do service, to work hard, those kind of spiritual aspects of the thing. So that is why AA calls it a profound personality change is required from an addictive personality. An addictive personality is one who is very impatient, manipulative, dishonest person, to a non-addictive personality. So these are the techniques we use in what is called an integrated treatment model. 12 steps is based on the Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. Then psychotherapeutic techniques such as cognitive behavior therapy, group therapy, then psychiatric evaluation. And if the person we feel has a psychiatric problem, then there will be an intervention by the psychiatrist. Some yoga, some meditation, some traditional therapy, and then a personalized plan has to be done. Also, it should be gender specific, because issues with women and men differ. Then geographical and cultural differences. An American or a British will have a different viewpoint or background than a person from Oman or India. By the way, Oman and India are very, very similar. We have strong family ties, we have respect for elders. Those kind of things are very, very similar. Now, there are some myths. Some people say that you can get out of addiction with willpower, which is not true. Because actually, if you look at an addict, they have a lot of willpower. You are going on saying, don't take drugs, don't go to your friends. Even if the government bans or hides or criminalizes, they somehow go and get their drug. That is called willpower. So any recovery means the opposite of willpower. They should not exercise their self-will. They should actually be more, they should surrender to the guidance and advice of somebody. So that requires humility. So the opposite of willpower is required for recovery. Then we, at least in Western societies and all, we believe that addicts are only people who are very poor and living on the streets, in slums. But addicts often, as we have seen, come from very rich, educated families. So addiction does not discriminate. It cuts across all cultural and educational or economic barriers, and it can impact anyone. Then addicts think, that if they take drugs, they will be the cool guy and they'll be popular in a party, but not true. Ultimately, addicts become very lonely. People leave them, and they are also disliked or shunned by the family. And some people believe that a glass of wine is recommended or whatever. So some of these things may not be very relevant to Oman. The last one is very important, psychological myth. People believe that people start taking drugs because they have psychological or emotional problems or relationship problems. But everybody has problems. Everybody has psychological problems, emotional problems, relationship problems. For example, at least I can't say that my marriage is perfect. I don't know how many of you can say that, but it is good. Haji knows that. But
total silence, total silence.
So, but that doesn't mean that when I was drinking, I used to think I'm drinking because my wife is very strict. She's nagging me, but she was strict and nagging me because I was drinking. I was not drinking because she was strict and nagging. So people develop psychological and emotional problems because they are taking drugs, usually. And they have job problems, they have other problems because they are taking drugs. So we have to see whether the horse comes first or the cart. So I will take any questions if you have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the very interesting presentation, an important one. So we'll start to take some questions. Maybe we can go, since we don't have a lot of participants, so maybe we can listen to each and every member if you wish to ask anything. So Mr. Haji, would like to add any comment?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Reham, and thank you, Mr. Luther, for a very interesting presentation. I'm used to it because I have a son who is an addict, and I had a brother who was an addict, and both were Hope Trust's patients. One came out with flying colors and completely, recovered and enjoying his life. One is struggling, getting up and falling down, getting up and falling down, for maybe very, very reasons that you mentioned. The question I have, how do I know, for example, if I'm a drinker, if I drink alcohol, how do I know that, I have a problem, that I'm an addict? What are the signs? Thank you.
Yeah. When you start developing a problem, then you also start developing denial. So you cannot see the problems, but the people around you can see. So if people are pointing out more often, or of course the signs are that number one, if you tell yourself that I'm going to drink only one drink today or two drinks today and you're not able to keep up to it, that is one sign. Second sign is that you tell yourself that I don't have a problem because I can stop. So you stop for a week, but then you go back to it. And then you get convinced that because I can stop for a week and go back to it, therefore I don't have a problem. But you're not looking at the starting again aspect. You're looking at only the stopping aspect. So And other problems if are being created around you. Any problems, suppose your wife is nagging you, or you're not able to cope with your job, or you have developing health problems, and still you continue to drink, that is the first sign that you have a problem. But usually the self-diagnosis becomes little difficult because the mind starts playing tricks with yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I have another question. You know, I have many friends, you know, who would, you know, they enjoy their drinks, and some of them get quite tipsy every day. But the surprising thing is that, you know, every Ramadan for 30 days, they abstain from drinking and they have no problem. So
Yes.
how do you explain this?
Well, what you have to see what happens after Ramadan. In India also, we have something called, what is that? You know, they wear black clothes, and all the alcoholics, they head to some temple. And for 30 days, they don't eat non-veg, and they don't drink. So the families get very happy because they think, oh, this guy is not an alcoholic, you know, he can stop for. But on the way back from the temple, the first shops are selling alcohol. So they come home drunk.
Very interesting.
So, you know, why do they need Ramadan to stop? Why can't they stop? So obviously they have a problem.
Maybe it's fear of God, you know, for that month they said, you know, this 30 days.
Why God is not there rest of the year, is it?
For them, for many of us, you know, for many of them is just Ramadan, you know.
Yeah, for many of them, Johnny Walker is a god.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Khalil Al-Baluchi, do you have any comment?
Yes, thank you, Rehab. Thank you, Mr. Lothar. Yeah, I have a couple of points, comments, and maybe a couple of questions. The first thing is that the relationship being genetic, that is news to me. Addiction, I always thought it is all to do with behavioral aspect of people. You see a group, you see your parents, you see whoever is around you, and you join, and then it becomes a habit. But then the connection of the genetics is something new to me. The other one is you have touched upon the it's different from regions to region. For example, in the West is different than here. It has to do with the culture in the aspect of accepting it, or even before, it's reporting it. Like you give the example of a wife doesn't want to report it. So it is to do with the shame, and probably also the connectivity with your religion, addiction to drugs and all that. It is a taboo when it comes to religion also here. That is probably one of the aspects. On the religion, when you call it bio, psycho, social, spiritual, from the little knowledge I have, there are the atheists, for example, are more into addiction than those who have some beliefs in any God that they believe in. So is it spiritual in that sense, or non-spiritual people, the atheists, are more prone to be addicted into any type of addiction? The last point I have is the new era, the going forward, the life-changing into technology. Is addiction to technology a disease now? Thank you.
Okay, that's two main questions. Religion and spirituality, I would separate the two. Spirituality is more of your attitudes in life, and religion is you can be spiritual and still not believe in God. You can still be an atheist. So that is why in our recovery program we call it higher power, because some people don't like the word God. So higher power means somebody who knows more than you. It can be God if you are lucky and you believe in God, or it can be some guide, your therapist, or a senior addict who's gone through it and guides you, your counselor, anybody else. So that also teaches us humility, that I am not the most powerful. I am not the one who decides everything. I'm not the center of the universe. And ultimately, this journey towards believing in a higher power may lead to a belief in God. There are many people who believe in God and still get addicted. We get Christian priests who are addicted. No, they are priests. They are robed. And in India, there are so many people who in the morning they get up and they do this ritual of puja for half an hour and all. By evening, they are drunk. So that is a pseudo belief in God. So what is a belief in God is a very, very deep question, and we know that in Islam it is forbidden, but then, as you know, Oman has a major problem with addiction. And for a long time, many years back, in Oman, the government used to deny that they have a problem. And then they even set up a committee, to handle. Then they set up rehabs. They set up. Because I was interacting with them for a long time, Dubai also denied that they had a problem. Till the royal family, the main person there, and the health minister, their sons got addicted. They had to be sent to America for treatment. Then they invited us and other people to set up a rehab there. Before Dubai, it was Abu Dhabi. They set up a rehab, a large rehab, and but that they only did for the more poorer people. And Dubai all this time thought that only expats are getting into the problem. But drugs were being, you cannot stop drugs, coming in. So it has nothing to do with religion, but the choice of drug has something to do with geography and religion. Iran, for example, exports drugs into Oman. So you have more of a heroin problem in Oman than alcohol problem. But in church, they even serve wine as part of the ritual. So in places where there's more Christianity, you will find alcoholism is more than maybe drug addiction. So it is the geographical and cultural aspects, availability, etc. So I don't think religion or drugs is anyway related, but there are many people who get into religion in a very, very strong, fanatic way and come out of addiction. I've seen that, which is also not a balanced thing, because the idea is to be a balanced person. Your God is your personal belief. You keep it at home. You don't have to go around preaching to everybody that, my God is this, that, or whatever. So we stress more on the spiritual aspect. Genetics, of course, is a established scientific fact now. It has two main reasons, genetic and biochemical. The thing is, you have a predisposition towards addiction. It's not necessary that if you have a genetic predisposition, you will get addicted, but you will be more susceptible towards addiction. So if you take once or twice some drug, then your chances of becoming an addict are more than a person who doesn't have a genetic connection. That's all there is to it. Just like heart disease, or if you eat too much fatty food and your dad has had a heart attack or your grandfather. So it's quite likely you will also have high cholesterol and you will also develop a heart disease. And so what was your third, maybe you also don't remember now.
No,
Technology.
technology is
Yeah,
addiction.
technology is a major problem. Yes, absolutely. You can look around you. You know, if you go to a restaurant, people are not talking to each other. They are stuck to their phones. Our interpersonal relationship is gone for a toss. You know, earlier we used to talk more. Now we are all the time onto. But you know, it's something we have to personally monitor. And
But does the medical community list it as a sickness?
yes. It is listed as a disease, not the casual thing we do on the phone, but you know, gaming addiction,
Gaming, yeah.
gambling online, and internet addiction. There are some people who just keep on being on their phone or laptop, and they can't do anything else all the time. that is there. It is listed, and there's treatment. We also treat online for that. And
Especially kids with these fighting games, and then they go and act upon them and all that. Yeah?
yes, absolutely.
So my last point is again a contradiction to what I used to know is the willpower. One of the myths that you have listed is the willpower, and you
Yes.
said it doesn't have to do anything with the willpower, but to accept it, it's a willpower. To say that okay, I'm sick, I need to stop or go along with the treatment is also a willpower. How do we make this?
No, I
connected?
would call that honesty and courage, not willpower. You know, willpower means I'm strong, I can do it. So willpower will then tell me that suppose the rehab tells me you have to stay here for 3 months, but the willpower will tell me, no, I'm smarter than the other people. I can do it within 1 month. And then you go for a toss. Or willpower tells me that I'm smarter than my counselor. But if you have courage and if you are honest means you look back into your past and say, yes, these things have happened to me. I have tried on my own and I couldn't do it. I need help. And I have to have the courage to do things which I have not done before. I have to have the courage to follow a direction where I have not gone before. So it's not willpower. It is more of willpower is very dangerous for addicts. Willpower means I will go and I will use and I will have the willpower to stop again. Like Mr. Haji said that, it's my willpower during Ramadan not to drink. And but then what happens after Ramadan? Where is the willpower then?
So my last question before how much time you need to be off any type of addiction that it is good enough for you to be completely off of it? What is like does it depend on how much you have been on it? Like if you have been on it 5 years, it takes longer to go off of it, or does it matter like this, or how does it work?
No, you have to be off it for the rest of your life. And you will always have a tendency to go back to it. So if you're talking about how long to stay in a rehab, according to the Western standard, the gold standard is 90 days.
90 days.
Some change takes place in the thinking in 90 days. But research also indicates the longer you stay, the better it is.
So 3 consecutive Ramadans will be.
3 consecutive Ramadans.
Yeah.
But in United States, most of the rehabs say 27 days. So many clients come to us and say, why should we stay for 1 month or 3 months when US, but that is because the insurance companies pay only for 27 days. So the rehabs, but if you go to any rehab, they will also recommend that you stay 90 days. If you go to an NA meeting or a AA meeting, they say first 90 days you come every day. So, but then after that, you have to have a maintenance program. You have to be in touch with your fellow members or counselor to continue. Otherwise, your tendency to relapse will be there.
Is that the 12 step meeting you mentioned?
Yeah.
That is the one, yeah? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khalil. We'll go back again to Mr. Haji Adam, then Mr. Khamis Al-Blushi. Mr. Haji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Luther, what are the signs we need to look for in our children that, they are having trouble?
I think you should tell us that.
I want you to tell them. It will be more authenticated, yes.
Okay.
Isolation, when they go into isolation.
Yes. Isolation from the family, spending too much time outside and less time at home, red eyes, eating less or eating more, spending too much time in the bathroom, finding some evidence in their clothes like leaves or cigarette foil, things like that. Stealing money or spending too much money. Then physical appearance, not taking care of their physical appearance, hygiene. So these are some of the signs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Khamis, then Dr. Lamia. Mr. Khamis, go ahead.
Thank you, Rehab. I don't have a question. I had it, but my colleagues there already asked, and it was good. It was good. I know who Haji's meant. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, I didn't mention Haji's family because as a counselor, I have to maintain confidentiality. But I really appreciate that he's so honest, and open, because that way people can approach him for help. One of his family members is doing, in fact, he keeps sending me WhatsApp messages, photographs of his office, or some things in Arabic I don't understand. But the other person who's still struggling is out of touch with me. So that's a sign. If you're not in touch with me, that means you're not doing well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Lamia Kharousi.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Really happy that Majlis Al-Khonji is still hosting amazing talks. I've learned a lot. I'm a gynecologist and I have a 14-year-old son who I think the way he's behaving might be having a gaming addiction. Any more pointers apart from me trying to hide the PlayStation or one day throwing it out of the window?
No, that won't work.
I realize it won't work. That's why I haven't thrown it. So I'm trying to use, sense and rewarding, and okay, you do this and you'll be able to play for 2 hours. And, before stopping him, let's say I want him to stop at 6 p.m. At 5 p.m., I'll tell him, okay, you have 1 more hour and then we're going to stop. And then I tell him, okay, half an hour is left and we're going to stop.
Yeah.
And then I try and then I try and get him, meet with his friends so they do outdoor activities. But unfortunately, with COVID, there isn't much to do or places that they can go to. Unfortunately, in Oman, it's not like countries like Egypt, for example, where they have a nadi, the concept of a club where they do lots of sports at very affordable prices, and coaches are plenty. So any other pointers?
No, I think you're on the right track. Behavioral modification with rewards is a good idea. If you want, we can organize an online session first with you, and later on, if he agrees with him, a few sessions with one of our psychologists, and then, you know, we can go forward. But you're on the right track.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lamia, and been missing you a lot in the Majlis. Thank you very much. Mr. Haidar Al-Lawati, do you have any comment or question? Mr. Amir Al-Kiumi? Okay, maybe we'll take the last question from, if there are no questions, from Mr. Simon Karam, and also to summarize this session with him.
Before Simon, if I may say, Mr. Luther, is there also a program or treatment for liars?
Or?
Liars, for liars.
You go to the mosque.
Honestly speaking, because since you mentioned gambling and mentioned sex, and I thought maybe, you know, because there are people who are seriously, serious liars, and
Yeah, just avoid them. That's all. Keep on lying.
Is it an addiction? Is it an addiction, or?
No, it's some people are their personality is like that because they are manipulative. Their value system is, maybe they feel that if by lying they will get more money or more success, and they feel that everybody is out to get them, so they have to get an upper hand in every situation. So you have to avoid negative people like that.
You mentioned sex. I mean, what kind of problems you come across with sex?
Well, sex addiction means a person, just like with a drug addiction, they get obsessed with sex, and not only they will overdo with their partners, but also they will act out in public. You know, they may make a pass at some lady in the public, or they may do voyeurism. That means they will watch. Then there is porn addiction. So it's an obsession. You see, as long as it stays in the mind, it somewhat is okay. But when you act out, when you are troubling your partner, you know, trying out, for example, different positions all the time, and these kind of things, it's not realistic and it is not healthy. You know? So you got to have some.
Yeah. Just one more thing I'd like to mention, maybe for everybody, you know, that I know Hope Trust for so many years, and we started almost when they started with our patients. And one of the things I like to mention, one of the benefits which my addicted son benefited after finishing his 3 months rehab and with the Hope Trust, that he came out almost like doing a diploma in life. To be honest, you know, what he did not learn in the school, he learned in Hope Trust. And it's because maybe some people think that in these places they will be all, the low-class people, but you will be surprised. They have doctors, they have people with PhDs, they have engineers, they have scientists, all sorts of people you meet there. With all different type of addictions, and of course mostly alcohol and hard hard drugs. And before I hand you over to Mr. Simon Karam, it will be nice to mention, Mr. Luther, if somebody has a problem, how can they approach you?
Well, I can give my number or email ID, whatever is preferable. How do I give my number?
Yeah, I mean, I have your number, but maybe we can give it to Rehan, because maybe some people will call and ask the coordinator in case of.
Well, they may feel hesitant to ask her. So I'll read out my number.
Okay.
Yeah, and normally we put the record of this session will be on our YouTube, and normally we keep some details or some. So if you have maybe the center number, if you don't want to keep your direct number, maybe we can keep the center contact number in the YouTube. Yeah, just details.
No, for Oman people, my direct number is there because I have a lot of emotional connection with Oman. You know, I love Oman. I love Omanis. One of my friends passed away, Khonji, you know.
Yes.
He was a good friend. He invited me many times. And I have a lot of friends there. So I'll just read out, and then those who want to note down. And,
okay.
Yeah, Aji is the best contact.
Sure.
Aji once gave me a bottle of scotch as a gift.
I remember that. Yes.
So I said, this is the wrong thing to get me, you know. I don't accept booze.
I remember that. Yes.
Next time you get me an iPhone or something.
Thank you very much. We'll take the last comment and this summary by Mr. Simon Karam. Thank you very much.
Okay, there is a chat this thing, no? Option.
Sorry?
There is a chat option.
Yeah, we don't have any questions in the chat. It's just Madame Samira.
No, I will just type my number there.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, Mr. Simon, please go.
Yeah, thank you. Before doing the summary, you know, I mean, I have a question. Two questions. One was definitely partially answered by Mr. Luther. So it is you know, it's a disease, and it's a disease that requires treatment. Therefore, the treatment, because it's bio, psycho, socio, spiritual disease, then and there is a personalized plan. You recommend a personalized plan.
Yes.
Who is then the focal point? Who can do that? Is it, and definitely the first answer is Hope Trust or similar establishments that can do that. So if somebody has got is addiction to something, that's the place to go to, is it? Yes. And not to a friend for advice, or not to parents, because they are not psychologists, they are not psychiatrists, they are not yoga. It's a global plan. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, you can come to a place like Hope Trust, or you can come to Hope Trust. I mean, there are many other places.
Yeah, good. We have in the country now rehabilitation centers, run by government, I think, and some by private sector, where one could go there. But it's a good thing to know that it is not a one aspect thing. It's not emotional. It is a holistic treatment that you need. Yes. Now, the second question is to put a bit of fun in the whole thing. You said there's different types of addictions: eating, gambling, love, shopping, exercise. We'll do that in the summary. I would like to talk about two of them. One is sex, and that has been cured by age, so no problem. But But the
No,
problem
now you get medicine also for that.
no.
Problem.
No, it's a joke. The second one is eating. Eating is a great one. Nobody talks much about it. You see, is it an addiction? And if it is, how to cure it? Should we go to a nutritionist only, or should we go to Hope Trust, for example, and deal with it as a disease? That's the question.
No, you see, just being fond of food and eating is not really a problem. But the, it is called bulimia. That means you eat so much and then you have to puke. You make yourself vomit and you start eating secretly. That is a problem.
Okay.
Just enjoying food and, having kebabs and all, I wouldn't call it a disease,
Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. We're going to have lunch soon. The last thing, to go back to what Khalil asked about the time or the way to identify. You see, I see some good things in having one or two drinks by experience. If you are with friends, they become more talkative, more relaxed. You enjoy the talk, you laugh more. So there are very, very interesting things. You see, some people are shy, they become less shy. It's interesting. The problem is to identify, where to stop the interface, where the interface between addiction and having a drink with friends, which is at least in certain aspects beneficial. I've defined myself, you see, okay, in all humility, I'm not an expert, neither on drinking nor on thinking, But I think, I go out for a drink with friends. And when I come home, I have drinks at home, I never touch them. I think that's a good indication that it is not an addiction. I have drinks available, I never touch them at home because I see more the result of having drinks with friends, which is having good time, better discussions, bringing people together actually to some extent, if it is moderate.
Yes. I told you that out of 10 drinkers, 8 are normal, they are not alcoholics. Only 2 cross the line. So you are neither having a overeating problem, nor you're having a drinking problem.
But I'm having good time in this session. That's the thing. It's a bit difficult to summarize because it is so rich, and thank you very much. However, I think you started with the very, very strong point, which is practically new to me anyway, which is to consider addiction as a disease. It's not bad or mad, it is sick. And the first time where somebody mentioned that it is a sickness was in 1935 by Anonymous, Alcoholic Anonymous. And then the American board, 1956, talked about it as an illness. Then we talked about the characteristics of the disease. And you talked about the disease being primary, genetic, or biochemical factor, and you explained that very well. That it is progressive, a characteristic of this disease, it is progressive. The quantity and the frequency of intake increases with time. That's what we mean by that. And a major one is denial. People tend to deny that they have a problem. Denial needs to be recognized and broken for recovery to begin. We tend to minimize the effect. I say I drink 1 or 2 drinks, that's all, or blaming on others, like my wife gives me a hard time. We also talked about this, we agreed with you. Rationalizing, my job gives me lots of stress, therefore intellectualization. Wow, that's a big word. I work better when I have a drink.
Can you recognize that you just now yourself justified that I drink because I can get together with people? I have only 2 drinks.
Yes, I was looking for it. I was looking for it. It's there. But I was going to mention it in the myth, not here. In the myth. Diverting, you change topic if you mention the thing. He shows hostility sometimes, gets angry, or goes into silence. So it's a series of excuses, alibis, blames, all to deny. So we talked, the characteristics are primary, progressive, denial, incurable, chronic, but treatable, you said. Yeah, well, it's good to know that it's a disease and it is treatable. And it is relapse prone. This is one of the things. It may come back again. You know, I stopped smoking about 52 years ago. And still not sometimes I see the need to have a cigarette, but you know, it's still there. There is something that remains there. It's stunning. The strong characteristic that you mentioned at the end is that it's fatal. It's fatal if not treated, may end up in early death, but it affects all the aspects of the addict's life: physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and the relationships. Then, luckily, you talked about the treatment. This can be treated. It has to be a holistic treatment. And there are many techniques: group therapy, psychiatric evaluation, maybe some yoga and meditation. Anyway, the key word here, I think, is personalized plan. For every individual, one makes a plan and decides where to send him. And you ended up by clarifying certain myths. One of them is the one I mentioned, you know, having a few drinks with friends, you know. Anyway, there's a myth that the addicts do not have strong willpower. This is wrong. That the alcoholics are drunkards living on the street. This is wrong. Actually, there are many more in high society than the drunkard, because they can afford it, especially with 3 times tax these days, you know.
And they can hide behind.
They can hide, but also financial, as you said. You know, I mean, you go now to a restaurant in other countries and you pay much more for the drink than for the food.
Yes.
Anyway, popularity myth. I'm a cool guy, you know, I'm cool. I'm accepted by, I'm not going to say ladies, by friends, maybe. Prescription myth that doctors recommend alcohol. And psychological myth, emotional problems. Here where I wanted to say. Oh, I'm on mute.
Oh.
So I don't know where I stopped. So we're not
just now.
Popularity myth, prescription myth, psychological myth. It is a very, very enriching talk. We thank you very much. We know much more now, and Majlis Khonji is always happy to host people like yourself, especially when it could end with something beneficial, which is the address of Hope Trust, and hopefully we remain in touch. Thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put my phone number on the chat.
Yes, it's clear. Yeah, there will be a recording for this session on our YouTube channel. And Madame Samira was asking if there is a center available locally. I think the center is available in India. And what are any other countries, Mr. Rahul?
Yes, in Egypt and in Oman, there is a person called, one second. Dr. Mahmoud Al-Abri.
Dr. Mahmoud Al-Amri?
Yeah.
Al-Abri.
Rostaq.
So Haji knows him.
Yes.
I don't know if he's still in that position, but
Yes.
Yeah, Mahmoud Al-Abri is in And Ibn Sina, yes. And Ibn Sina,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Still there.
But they were planning to revive those 2 or 3 centers which had closed down
Yeah.
early. So I had been interacting with him. The only thing is they stress too much on the medical aspect and less on the psychological aspect. But he's a very, very enlightened, very good person. And maybe you can take help from him.
Where in Egypt is your center? Sorry, I just jumped in.
No, we don't have a center in Egypt, but we heard that a lot of boys are sent there because of the religious aspect. You see, in Oman, they stress more on the medical aspect. In Egypt, they stress more on the religious aspect. So this is what I know. So you have to decide.
Well, I'll be quite happy if anybody has any questions, because I know a lot about Hope Trust. So I'll be quite happy to talk and also talk about my bitter experience with my son.
And happy experience with the other person.
Yeah.
But happy ending, Haji Adam, happy ending.
Yes, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Mr. Haji. Mr. Haider, you have any comment or question?
Thank you, Mr. Luther. I don't have any question, but I would like to know, in the society, you know, there are poor and rich. So where these problems are coming, with it the poor families or rich families? And now we heard that there are some school girls, you know, and school boys, they are addicting some kind of heroin. From what is coming? They are cheap heroin is being selling in the market. And it affects, you know, many small students. So we don't know the problem exactly from where it's coming. Thank you.
As I said earlier, it doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor, how young or old you are, how educated or uneducated you are. It doesn't matter. The problem is coming from Iran, if I can tell you that.
Actually, in Oman, the addiction age is the lowest, I think, was reported to be 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, we should not. First, we have to think about ourselves. We have to think about our families, and then think of the nation. Because we must realize how much power we have or what we have. So if we are in a government position, yes, we can think about a national, trying to help in a national scale. But first we have to start with ourselves, our own families. That is what we can do. So as it says in the Alcoholics Anonymous program, God should grant us the serenity to accept the things what we can do, and courage to accept the things what we cannot do. So we cannot change the society, we cannot bring about law and order, but what we can do, we should do.
Yeah, just a minor correction, Mr. Luther. You mentioned Iran, but actually the problem is not from Iran. Iranians are only transporters. It is starting from Afghanistan, coming through Pakistan, and then it ends up in Iran, where it's carried by sea to the Gulf countries.
Yes. Well, most of the problems are in Pakistan and Afghanistan for the rest of the world also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have reached to the end of our session today. Mr. Haji Adam, if you don't mind, if you would like to be our next session guest as a continuous for this session, and then we will have some real examples based on what you have mentioned today. This comment came from many people, so if you don't mind, you will be our next session guest.
I don't mind talking about my experience, but let's get together and then we'll discuss what is to be done, inshallah.
Great, thank you very much. Dear guest, Mr. Rahul, thank you very much indeed for your valuable presentation and discussion.
Thank you. It was
for your active participation.
Yeah, it was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you next Saturday. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.